Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here with the latest episode of the Aravosis Report. Every night, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Thank you, Carlos Bond, for the super sticker. I will turn on TikTok here, and as always, we'll wait a minute or two for folks to arrive and then get rolling with the news. All right. All right, TikTok's loading. Lost connection. Good connection. Woo. TikTok almost gave me an error. Now TikTok's giving me a weird error. All right, TikTok, be good to me. All right. That was very strange. All right, TikTokers, welcome. It gave me a lost connection warning a second ago. I was like, ah. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. Right before the show, I decided I was going to look at some of my IKEA lighting I bought today for a cabinet I bought. And I've never been pissed at IKEA before. Oh my God. I will say this about IKEA. We're having small talk here, waiting a minute or two for folks to arrive. I will say this for IKEA. I love IKEA, but the fact that they're so minimalist with their instructions means when you go to the store and you're buying lighting where it needs 2 or 3 or 4 things, they don't freaking tell you what you need. The guy got it wrong today, it looks like. And of course, IKEA is 45 minutes away. Anyway, I'm a little annoyed. It's so freaking hard. Anyway, I can't, of course I'm Googling and I can't even figure out what I need. I'm trying to figure out it. I have to call IKEA. Anyway, whatever. We're waiting another minute for folks to arrive. That's why I'm bitching about IKEA. So I've got to call IKEA tomorrow and figure out what I even need. And then whether I even want to pay for this, because I'm not paying for an IKEA smart hub for $70 when I've already got Google and Philips, everything. Oh, so annoying. So annoying. Anyway, guys, welcome. I am John Aravosis. Thank you, Bonnie, for the gift there. This is the Aravosis Report, our nightly show about the latest from Ukraine. Thank you, Zoe, for the pause there. The way the show works, I do about half an hour of news, and then the second half of the show, we talk about the news. I was talking about the news. I'm still pissed off about IKEA today. Second half of the show, I take your guys' questions, and we go through those. To submit questions on TikTok, you're over here on my iPad. Use the Q&A function that is in my profile. It just simply says Q&A. Usually it works. TikTok's kind of funny sometimes, but it should work. For the rest of you, obviously, you can use the comment box and everything else at the bottom of the screen. Otherwise, I do this for free. I'm doing it full time and nobody's paying me other than you guys. So I appreciate your support. If you can afford to do gifts on TikTok, thank you, Elle, for that. And the super chat, super stickers on YouTube, those help me out a lot, so I appreciate it. Thank you, BJ. All right, let's get rolling. So, oh boy, lots of news today, some good, some bad. I was debating whether to start with the good news from Britain or the bad news from Elon Musk. I'm going to start with the bad news from Elon Musk, and then we're going to talk about the good news from Great Britain, from the UK. So Elon Musk is playing games again today. Okay, Musk has many different companies. Okay, one of them is SpaceX. Excuse me, SpaceX. One of their products is Starlink, and it basically is an internet connection that works with a series of satellites he's launched all over the United States in low orbit, and all over the U.S. All over the world. And it allows you to get internet from these satellites, which is great for people in Africa, great for people in Ukraine right now. So in any case, Musk initially started off with the war, and he promised to provide a lot of basically Starlink for free to Ukraine as his humanitarian aid to help Ukraine under attack by evil Russia, blah, blah, blah. Well, time goes on, and we find out from a reporter, Ian Bremmer, or not a reporter, but a foreign policy expert, Ian Bremmer, who's very trustworthy. He reports several months ago that Elon had a little secret conversation with Vladimir Putin, the dictator of Russia, and that Putin, among other things, threatened Musk and threatened to take down satellites, Starlink's satellites, right? SpaceX's satellites. Well, huge deal. SpaceX is the future of Musk's empire. Musk, for example, some of the stuff I was reading, that there's so much competition with Tesla right now that Tesla isn't his baby anymore as far as the future. The future is SpaceX and Starlink. Well, right after we get this report that Musk allegedly had a secret phone call with Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin had threatened to shoot down the satellites if Musk basically, kept being so friendly to Ukraine. Musk comes out and starts putting all this Putin propaganda. This was several months ago, remember? You heard about it, but I'm giving you the background in case you didn't know all the story. So Musk starts putting out all this propaganda about, Crimea, mind you, Crimea, the Ukrainian territory in the south, the Russians invaded in 2014 and stole this territory. Well, Crimea is actually Russian, and the people there want to be Russian, and we should have a referendum. And let them vote and decide who they want to be. Well, Elon, let me tell you how that works. When Russia invaded in 2014, you might not be surprised that a lot of Ukrainians didn't want to live in a territory that was now occupied and annexed by an evil dictatorship. So like 1 million Ukrainians left. What did Elon do? He brought 1 million. No, Elon. What did Elon? I'm calling Putin Elon. What did Putin do? Putin brought in 1 million Russians because, of course, when you invade somebody else's land, when you literally annex another country, you put all your people in to take up the place. So there were like 2 million people in Crimea, like a million Ukrainians leave, 1 million Russians join. So what do you think is going to happen? It's imagine your home. Some family comes and squats in your home. Mind you, they come at gunpoint. They kick you out of your home. Okay, they're now squatting in your home with guns. You're on the street, and Elon Musk says, hey, why don't we take a poll of the people in the house right now and ask them who should be living in the house? So anyway, fast forward, Elon gets embarrassed. At the same time, this is a couple months ago. I'm going to fast forward to what Elon Musk did today. Fast forward then, Elon puts out all this BS about Ukraine really being Russia and the Russians were right to invade, all this kind of crap, basically. He then at the same time says, and I'm not going to pay for Starlink anymore. This is unfair. Everyone's getting money and I'm not getting money. And within 1 month, I'm cutting off Starlink internet to Ukraine. Now, first of all, yes, it'd be nice if Elon gets paid, if other people get paid. I can see why he wants to get paid. But you know what? You gave it to Ukraine for free. Elon wanted all the publicity at the beginning of the war by giving Ukraine Starlink internet for free. And he then turned around a couple months later and said, you know what? This Starlink, it's really expensive. It's costing me a lot of money. Well, yeah, no, as Sherlock. I mean, thank you, Azamak, for the hat. Of course it's costing you money. You gave it to them as a gift. Okay, nonetheless. So what happens? The allies, Elon goes, he got a lot of blow up, goes, well, okay, I'm going to pay for it anyway. No one gets money. Everyone gets money except me. I'm going to have to pay for it anyway. He says he's going to continue Starlink. In fact, what happens is the US steps in, Europe steps in, particularly France, and they're paying for Starlink in Ukraine now, not Elon Musk, okay? Because smartly, the allies figured out you can't trust Elon Musk because there's something weird going on with him in Ukraine, right? Thank you, Ted, for the hat. So take us to today. We find out today, thank you, Annie, for that. We find out today that Elon has decided to cut off Starlink again for drones in Ukraine. Elon, out of the blue, it's been a year now, they've been using Starlink out of the blue. Elon's decided, when you're using satellite internet to communicate with your drone, because of course, how else are you communicating with a drone, right? You're flying it around. That's offensive. That's not defensive. I don't want that to happen anymore. So Elon cut off the Starlink internet to the Ukrainian drones. Mind you, what do we think is happening in 9 days? We fear that in 9 days, Putin is going to renew the invasion with some massive attack. That's the concern of what's going on right now. 9 days before, at least publicly, there's concern that Putin is preparing to launch a massive attack on Ukraine. Massive attack. Elon Musk just coincidentally turns off Starlink so that it can't be used for drones in Ukraine. Now, as I said yesterday, or my video today on TikTok talking about Musk, we don't know what is motivating Musk. We can look at his history over the last year, and we can look at the fact that at least previously it was reported that Elon had a secret phone call with Vladimir Putin where Putin threatened to shoot down Musk's satellites. And then afterwards, Musk suddenly became Mr. Pro-Putin and anti-Ukraine. Thank you, Paramarine. Let me put it this way. If I were Vladimir Putin, and I've told you guys this with Joe Biden too. Thank you, Alan John. I've told you this was Joe Biden. Joe Biden has done a great job rallying the allies on Ukraine, provided a lot of support for Ukraine. But I didn't like from the beginning that Biden kept talking about nuclear war and World War III. And if we give Ukraine too many good weapons, Russia's going to get mad and then there's going to be World War III, right? I was saying how at the beginning, all of that was going to cause problems because you're feeding Putin by doing that, right? You're literally telling Putin, I'm afraid of you. And I'm afraid of your nuclear weapons, and I'm afraid that you would use them. Well, if I'm Putin, I'm not going to give Ukraine all the weapons it should have because I'm afraid you'll use your nukes. If I'm Putin, I would turn around and go, this is great. I'm just going to keep talking more about my nukes. They think I'm actually going to use the nukes and they're not giving Ukraine enough weapons because of it. Then I'm going to talk more about nukes to guarantee. Well, what happens with Elon Musk? I have a secret phone call. I'm Vladimir Putin with Elon Musk. I threaten his satellites. And right afterwards, Musk threatens to turn off the entire Starlink to Ukraine, start spewing all my talking points, put out a peace plan that basically was a peace plan that Putin would have put out there, right? If I'm Putin and I've got now a big offensive coming in a week or two, possibly, I would have called Elon Musk privately and said, turn it off or I'm shooting your satellites out of the sky. Now, of course, this is a lie. Putin will not be shooting Elon Musk's satellites out of the sky because it's an American company. And if he attacks American satellites in space, it's World War III. But what Putin knows is Elon's scared. So I think he threatened Elon. I don't have proof of this. I'm saying, like, theoretically, if I were Putin, this is what I would have done. All we know now is that supposedly they've shut it off for drones. It is unfreaking believable that Musk is doing this. It is absolutely positive. At its worst, he's doing it for Putin. At its worst, at its best, he's doing it because Putin threatened him, and therefore he's now going to take Putin's side in the war and stop helping Ukraine. I mean, this guy is such a piece of work, such a freaking piece of work. I just can't even. Oh, Google it. Well, I see the Russians are already here. You are lying. By the way, I always like to give a little help to the Russian trolls. It's you're lying. It's not you are lying. You are lying is what my mother says, who immigrated from Greece. An actual American would say you're lying, not you are lying. You can even hear the R trill. Oh my God. Oh, wrong, Jenny. Wrong, Jenny. He's under no obligation to help Ukraine. I've got a little news for you. Elon Musk is a defense contractor. Starlink and SpaceX that runs Starlink, they're U.S. defense contractors. I got some news for you here. When an American company decides that it's going to undercut American foreign policy and support one of America's enemies in a war, the U.S. can simply nationalize that business if they want to. At the very least, they can get the Defense Production Act in gear and tell them what to do, at the very least. But don't you dare tell me that Musk can do whatever he wants to do, because we're at war and he just sided with the enemy. And we are at war. I mean, this is what drives me nuts with this whole BS about how, it's not really NATO involved. Look, guys, we and the Russians are at it. Obviously, Ukraine's the big one at it. But I mean, my freaking God. No, it is so... I'm sorry, this guy, I'm going to probably kill a bunch of my stories and just stick with these things tonight. Now, Elon Musk, I was impressed. I knew nothing about the guy other than SpaceX. As I always say, SpaceX, totally cool. Starlink, satellite internet, how cool is that? SpaceX, I always say, boom, boom. How cool is that? You guys who know SpaceX know what I'm talking about. So freaking cool. Tesla, I test drove a Tesla several years ago. Amazing. It was like driving an iPhone. It was the coolest thing. Then he takes over Twitter and I start paying attention to the guy. He's a freaking lunatic. He's not just a freaking lunatic. He's pandering to our enemies. I mean, oh my God. No, and I'm sorry. Yeah, he can choose. He's a private company. I got news for you. Also, here's the other thing with the private company thing. He's been helping Ukraine for a year. You don't get to say, well, I don't want to get involved in the war. First of all, you don't want to get involved in the war. He's a defense contractor. They take projects from the Pentagon. Literally, SpaceX is a defense contractor. You don't like war? What are you doing? You're taking taxpayer money as a defense contractor. No, I mean, seriously, guys, this is how ridiculous the whole argument. I have no problem with defense contractors. Thanks, Webadeb. This is my more conservative foreign policy side. I'm fine with defense contractors, but don't tell me that, like, you're literally taking money from the Defense Department and then you say, but I don't like war. I don't want to be associated with it. The hell you don't. And by the way, final point on this, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen to Starlink when the American Defense Department starts using it more and more? When the American Defense Department starts using Starlink to guarantee that its planes, when they're in the air, can have secure communications and internet and everything else. And then we go to war with Russia and Elon decides, I don't like, and mind you, I don't like war. That's not what's going on. Elon says, I got threatened by Putin. I have to turn you off, America. Then what happens? Right? You cannot trust these people. You cannot trust these people. Oh, I'm not even reading the comments. Don't worry. I did see that really quick. Someone says they're baiting you. I'm not reading the comments. I tend not to read the comments when I'm in the middle of speaking because it throws me off. So I'm just looking here so I can see you guys generally, but not the comments. Just out of his mind, that guy. All right. Next, here's the good news story of the day. The Times of London is just reporting. Thank you, Marcy, for that. The Times of London is reporting, a very good newspaper from London, that the British are considering sending long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine. This is a big deal. Big deal in part because the missiles would be able to go some distance. Also big because cruise missiles are a big deal. These things cost potentially a couple $1 million or pounds or whatever per missile. They're not the kind of thing you use lightly, But the thinking is that if Ukraine gets these, and apparently, at least from the Times of London, they put it out there as there are serious negotiations going on with the Brits and the Ukrainians about possibly getting these cruise missiles. Now, what the Times of London was saying is the two missiles being considered, at least according to the article, are the Harpoon with a range. Well, here's the thing: Harpoon and Storm Shadow. Now, I'll tell you in a second a little more on that, but the range of them really depends on which variant. Now, the same thing we found with the tanks. Remember how, like, the American tanks we'll be sending eventually are the Abrams, but there's various Abrams. There's the M1A1, the M1A2. I think there's even an M1A3, I think. And the number at the end is the newer version of it, right? So depending what version cruise missile, even if the Brits agreed to this, it would make a difference for how what the range is of the missile. Some examples, though: the Harpoon has a range of 150 miles. That'd be great. I mean, that'd be amazing. Because currently, keep in mind, the missiles we're providing the Ukrainians can only go 60 miles. Okay, they can only go 60 miles, 100 kilometers. We now are going to be providing the GLSDB, Ground Launch Small Diameter Bomb, which it and the accompanying missile can go almost 100 miles, like 94, 93 miles, which is like 150 kilometers. That's great. But the Harpoon can go 150, even more miles, whatever that is in kilometers. I don't know. You'll figure it out. The Storm Shadow can go up to 350 miles, which is great. But again, what I read about that, though, modified versions for export have a significantly shorter range. So we really don't know what the range is going to be for these. The thinking is, from the article in the Times of London, that if the UK agrees to provide these cruise missiles to Ukraine, the longer range cruise missiles, the purpose of it is so that Ukraine can attack Crimea. Remember, again, we were talking about Crimea, the Ukrainian territory that Elon Musk has unilaterally decided should belong in Russia. Crimea is the Ukrainian territory down here that the Russians invaded and occupied and stole in 2014. Ukraine obviously wants it back because, they're a sovereign country and they'd like their land back. So anyway, very interesting, though, really, really interesting. Now, the one thing that worries me about this story, again, Times of London reporting that the Brits are seriously considering giving longer range cruise missiles to Ukraine, is I feel like with a lot of this news, and you'll see with a story coming up soon on fighter jets, we sort of hear good stuff and then it backs down. And I don't know if it backs down because the Americans get involved or the French or the Germans, but somebody weighs in and scares everybody, right? Like Poland today, by the way. Poland today. Thank you, Nurse Boyer, for the gift there, and Marie. Poland today weighed in and said, any fighter jets that we would be providing Ukraine would be done in concert with all of our NATO allies. Everybody would have to agree, right? Thank you, Aggie. Everyone would have to agree, right? Now, to me, that was Poland backing off a little bit from all the talk about fighter jets in the last few days, right? And I fear the same thing may happen with the cruise missiles, but you know what? It is good that it's even being talked about. I mean, that's good. But let's see. We have a fundraiser going on, not for me. For me, remember, you can give gifts on TikTok and gifts on super chats on YouTube, because I do this for free. You guys are supporting my work. Thank you. But the fundraiser we're doing is for Ukraine. Thank you, Harold. We are raising money to buy the materials for Ukrainians to make camouflage nets for the military. I've got a picture here in a video and I will show you, but basically camouflage nets, somebody asked yesterday and I hadn't explained what it was, and I keep forgetting, not everybody, my mother might not know what a camouflage net is. Basically it's kind of cool. You take, a big, thank you, VRB, a big interwoven strings and white material. You could even take like a t-shirt and rip it apart, but like a white or colored, depending what you're doing. In this case, they're doing it. Thank you, Arabella. They're doing it for winter. So it's white. So it looks like snow, and you weave the individual pieces through this fabric, this tapestry, so that you just have pieces of white everywhere. I'm going to show you the picture. What happens is, if you lay that on top of military equipment, it could be on top of a truck, it could be on top of a HIMARS, right? The rocket system we've given them. It could be on top of a radar. I mean, you name it. It blends in with the surrounding landscape. It's literally camouflage because it's white, and from up above, it looks like snow on the land. Let me show you really quick. I was going to show you the photo and then the video again, but we're raising money. The Ukrainians have set up about 6 or 7 different centers around Ukraine to make these. Citizens are just coming in and volunteering to make them, and we are buying the materials for them to weave into the nets and the basic net material itself. $20 contribution from you guys. Well, thank you, Allie. $20 contribution from you guys will buy one net. The nets are 6 meters by 9 meters. That's 18 feet by 27 feet. We're talking about a fundraiser I'm doing to raise money for the Ukrainians to make camouflage nets for their military. We're hoping to raise $3,000. We only raised like $300 last night, so I hope we can raise a little bit more, guys, if you can. Thank you, Jake. I'll get to yours in a sec. Hope we can raise more than that, but we're hoping to maybe get 150 nets. Now, let me show you really quick. I've got a photo and then the video, but the photo will show you. The photo gives you a good idea, though. These are a bunch of, thank you, Mark, a bunch of women sewing this is actually one of the centers we're funding. So these are some of the women who are helping make the nets, but imagine the net you see there, okay? And I'll show you guys. Imagine that net you see from way above, covering the ground. Even the distance I've got it here, it does kind of look like it's snowed and the snow is sticking to it, doesn't it? That's the idea. It looks like snow and it covers the military equipment. Now, my sister had pointed out last night, and I totally forgot about this. Check out this video of the women doing this. They're all dressed in winter clothes because of the Russian attacks on the electricity and everything. They don't have heat. So they've got electricity to turn the lights on, but they don't have electricity for heating. So they're all wearing winter clothes. And it didn't even hit me when I looked at it at first. They're totally bundled up with their winter hats on and everything, and their scarves. I mean, that's the condition these guys are working under. But again, they're volunteering. So anyway, the way you give, really quick, and then I'll come back to the news, is on TikTok. I've set it up via the link in my profile that says Linktree. You can find all my links there, my Discord, my PayPal, you name it. And when you click through, the very first thing you'll see is the PayPal address that you need to donate to support this. 100% is going to Ukraine directly. I would prefer that you don't even send it to my PayPal address. Send it directly to my friend Vlad, who's coordinating this, and they'll get the money. All right. Thank you, Wanda, that's really cool, Wanda. Thank you for that. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That was very generous of you. Thank you. And very cool too. So thank you guys. And you guys, you can go to aravosis.com is the same link. Actually, that's probably the easiest way. Just go to aravosis.com for you all, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see the very first thing that comes up. All right, guys, let me keep going, but please do help for that if you can. So what else we got here? Like I said, I'm not going to hit all the news tonight because there were several important stories, and I wanted to make sure, like the Musk. Another important story, this just came out from the Washington Post. I told my nephew about it, and it's funny because he was like, "Yeah, I kind of figured the U.S. was doing this anyway." I think it's kind of interesting. The U.S. is helping the Ukrainians better target their weapons. Now, listen to this. Little snippets from the story. Ukraine requires. Okay, let me see here. Ukraine requires coordinates provided or confirmed by the U.S. and its allies for the vast majority of strikes using its advanced U.S.-provided rocket systems, revealing a deeper and more operationally active role for the Pentagon in the war. This is from the Washington Post. One senior Ukrainian official said Ukrainian forces almost never launch the advanced weapons without specific coordinates provided by the U.S. military personnel from a base elsewhere in Europe. Ukrainian military personnel identify targets they want to hit and in which location, and that information is then sent up to senior commanders who then relay the request to U.S. partners for more accurate coordinates. Ukraine could carry out strikes without U.S. help because Kyiv doesn't want to waste valuable ammunition and miss, it usually chooses not to strike without U.S. confirmation. Wow, that's pretty wild. That's it. Now, again, I guess I'm not surprised, but at the same time, wow. This is why I'm saying, like, we might as well be honest about this, and I have no problem with it. Thank you, Addie. Ukraine is at war with Russia. We are, I don't even want to use the words because it'll be used against us, but you know what I mean. We're a party to this, and I'm happy to be a party to this. And frankly, the Russians did it in Vietnam, and they've done it in every other war. The Russians provided planes in Vietnam to kill our pilots and to kill Americans. So please. In any case, I thought that was a very interesting story. Weather. So the weather, this was an interesting report from the British Ministry of Defense saying that the weather in Ukraine over the next few weeks is not great for launching an offensive. Now, one of the things that we've been worried about if you've been... Oh, Jake, I'm sorry. You know what? Yeah, thank you for Oshin. Let me pull up Jake's question first. Sorry about that, Jake. Do you think the NATO jet talks is actually framework to get Ukraine the NATO MiGs? Big fan of the show. Thanks, Jake. Well, okay. I mean, there's a couple different things here. First of all, it depends which talks we're talking about, right? There's been a lot of talk about planes. The only real discussion going on sort of about planes is the Brits. The Brits have taken the lead in talking to Ukraine about whether they can get planes. And Zelensky seemed very excited in his visit yesterday. Then I saw a story I told you guys about. Thank you, Harold and Lorraine, from one of the British defense experts was saying that he felt that the Brits didn't actually have any planes that they could give the Ukrainians. Their planes weren't the right planes. The right planes were potentially the American F-16s, the French Mirage, and the Swedish, starts with a G, Gifton or something like that. And so there was that, right? But the Brits are clearly taking the lead in helping the Ukrainians try to get the plane. So that could be this negotiation you're talking about. Griffin. Oh, Griffin, there you go, from Saab. Thank you. Yep, it was from Saab. I remember that. Thank you. So from the Swedes. What we're sort of forgetting is that you're right. Poland, remember, Poland said at the beginning of the war that Poland had MiG fighter jets, which are the Soviet-made jets going way back, that it could provide to Ukraine. Ukraine, remember now, history lesson here, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Russia was part of the Soviet Union. So when the Soviet Union dissolved and stopped existing in 1991, thank God, each country kind of inherited weapons from the mother country Soviet Union. Remember, Ukraine inherited nuclear weapons that it then negotiated to get rid of with a promise from Russia that they'd never invade. Nonetheless, a lot of the countries got Soviet weapons. So Poland, even though Poland wasn't part of the Soviet Union, Poland was part of the Soviet bloc. Poland was literally one of the Eastern European countries that was held hostage by the Soviets. The Soviets, in essence, occupied, they really did. I mean, they occupied all of Eastern Europe, installed a number of communist dictatorships that were, the worst dictatorships okay, North Korea's dictatorship was worse. That's probably about it. They were really bad. In any case, Poland therefore has MiGs that they inherited from the Soviet Union. Ukraine has been using MiGs that they inherited from the Soviet Union. So at least initially, it made sense to try to get Ukraine weapons that were weapons that came from Soviet production, because they're the very weapons Ukraine knew and was using. Well, the Poles wanted to provide MiG fighter jets. Remember, that was the whole thing that blew up, because they were going to do it. They wanted to do it in Germany at an American base, give it to the Americans, and the Americans would give the planes to Ukraine. And the whole thing blew up because the Americans went, well, we don't want to do it. And the Germans went, we don't want to do it. And the whole thing, right? So we don't really know how many MiGs the Poles still have that they can provide. There was one interesting little bit of information with this. There was a news report that the Poles may have disassembled some of the planes and provided them as parts, as spare parts, but they weren't really spare parts. They were IKEA. It was a box of spare parts for your fighter jets, and the box literally was a fighter jet in pieces that the Ukrainians put back together. So we don't know how many of the planes the Poles have even given. My long way of saying that, Jake, is I don't know if you and I don't know. The U.S. government surely knows how many MiGs are even available in Eastern Europe anymore that could be transferred to Ukraine, because they've got to exist in the country to transfer. B, they have to be available to transfer, meaning that the country can afford to do it. Because think about it, right now, if you're Eastern Europe, you want to make sure your country's defended. You don't want to be giving up your weapons necessarily. So I would think that giving MiGs, an IKEA MiG, exactly, new from IKEA. We'd have to think what you would call the IKEA MiG. You know, they have funny names for everything. What we were saying with the MiGs, final point, it would probably be less offensive to the Russians giving a MiG than giving an F-16. Sure. And the Ukrainians know how to use the MiGs. You know, they certainly do, but who knows, right? I mean, who knows? Weather. So I was telling you really quick about the weather. British Ministry of Defense is saying that the weather for the next several weeks, thank you, Lorraine, for the February thingy. The weather for the next few weeks into March, it's cold right now, but it's warming up quickly. And I mean, here in the US, it's been ridiculous. It was almost 70 degrees today. Thank you, El, for that. That the weather's warming up and we're heading towards muddy season again, rain and mud in Ukraine. And once there's rain and mud, you really get stuck. That season, let me see here. I think they said like by mid-March, mid to late March is when it gets extremely muddy, which will hurt any offensive. And remember, we're very worried about the Russians possibly having an offensive. Thank you, Peds. Oh, that's right. Pediatric nurse. I remember you. Thank you for that. The mid to late March, extremely muddy. And we've been talking about the Russians possibly having a huge offensive in the next few weeks or maybe the next month. That would make it harder for the Russians to do it. Now, final point, Russia initially invaded February 24th, right? That was already getting close to the beginning of the muddy season and Russia didn't care. So knowing Putin would probably tell the generals do it anyway. Would be my guess, but something to keep in mind. Let me look here. I'm gonna summarize the rest of the stories. Really quick mention too, we do have a Discord as well. Just go to my links, erevosis.com, or for you guys, just the link in my bio on TikTok. But we've got a Discord. We've got lots of things for auction, including very cool Ukrainian bracelets made by the Ukrainian government. This is made from the steel from the Azovstal plant. And there's got a Ukrainian trident on it. It's a little hard. Oh, there you go. Now you can see the Ukrainian trident. You guys can see it says from Azovstal. And we've only got 3 of these left. The Ukrainian government isn't making these anymore. So we're auctioning these, auctioning some Russian warship go F yourself stamps that are he's giving the finger. It's a famous Ukrainian painting somebody did honoring the sinking of the Moskva, which was the same ship that was going to bomb the Ukrainians, and they told the Ukrainians to surrender, and the Ukrainian responded, Russian warship, go F yourself. I mean, amazing. Well, this is the last set of stamps I have. Hopefully Vlad will get me more, but thank you, Pam. But right now, this is the last one, and we're auctioning it off as well. Oh, you did get your shit. Your shirt. That was a slip. That was a slipped swear word. That was okay. Your shirt. Oh, that's right. That's Klaus. Klaus in Holland got his shirt. Very nice. All right. A few more stories here. Iran has, thank you, Bonnie. Iran has modified the drones it's giving to Ukraine to cause even more carnage. Thank you guys for all the gifts on TikTok. To cause even more carnage, they've been modified with poorly fitted, this is from CNN, with poorly fitted layers of dozens of small metal fragments that scatter over a large radius. Typically, terrorists do this. The reason, I mean, it's funny. I working in DC and working in politics. Thank you, Pamela, for this for the hydro slime. The reason you take a bomb and you put lots of small pieces of shrapnel, they can use nails, for example. They'll use anything small that would cause damage, because when the bomb goes off, you not only get the blast of the bomb causing damage, but each little nail or whatever flying out will also be like lots of little bullets flying at you. That's basically what the Iranians are doing. They're now filling the drones with tons of metal fragments to basically kill more people and cause even more damage. I swear to God, I hope Israel takes care of these people. Thank you, Steve, for that. Zelensky is saying several European countries are ready to provide Ukraine with fighter jets. Zelensky went and talked to the European Parliament in Brussels today. Just quick updates. Lithuania is going to hand over 36 portable anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine. Thank you, Happy Beach. The Wagner group, the mercenary group, has in fact stopped recruiting prisoners, which we were talking about yesterday. Thank you, Pamela. And actually, this confirms something that Elise, I think, had brought up yesterday, that the Russian Ministry of Defense is reportedly now recruiting prisoners themselves, Russian prisoners, and putting them in their own penal battalion, a battalion of soldiers, which seems a bit crazy. Thank you, Nathan. Oh, we got a number of gifts here. Thank you, Killer Kitty, for the hat. I saw Nathan. Oh, and Mason with the musical notes. Thanks, Nathan. Blah, blah, blah. What else we got here? Oh, I've got two final stories. Okay, we're doing okay on time here. The one story, the news of the weird, Pink Floyd's Roger Waters, who has gotten himself in a lot of trouble. He's become a real Russian apologist for the war. And the Russians wanted him to address the United Nations Security Council. So he did. And he apparently spoke to the UN today by satellite and said that Russia's war was, apparently said that Moscow's invasion was illegal. Okay, that's good. He added, however, that it was not unprovoked. In other words, it was provoked, and condemned the provocateurs in the strongest possible terms. So in other words, he said it was illegal, but you deserved it. Thanks. Really helpful, Roger. And we're going to end with an Elon Musk story that's just bizarre. So this is from Zoe Schiffer and Casey Newton at Platformer. Platformer is a really good publication. They've been getting great stories on Twitter. They've got access to people inside Twitter. I'm just going to read you from their story. It's such a bizarre story. Not Ukraine. This is our palate cleanser of just bizarre news at the end of the night. For weeks now, Elon Musk has been preoccupied with worries about how many people are seeing his tweets on Twitter. On Tuesday, Musk gathered. This is earlier this week. On Tuesday, Musk gathered a group of engineers and advisors into a room at Twitter's headquarters looking for answers. Why are his engagement numbers on Twitter tanking? This is ridiculous, he said, according to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the meeting. I have more than 100 million followers, and I'm only getting tens of thousands of impressions, meaning the number of people who see each tweet he puts out. One of the company's two remaining principal engineers. Mind you, Elon Musk has fired 3/4 of the company at Twitter. He's just fired everybody. Twitter, by the way, melted down yesterday. Big surprise. You couldn't tweet for a while. One of the company's two remaining principal engineers offered a possible explanation. Just under a year after Tesla CEO made his surprise offer to buy Twitter, public interest was waning. Basically saying, you were getting a lot of attention a year ago, and then when you took over in November, it really peaked, and now people have moved on. Well, never tell a narcissistic, sociopath that the public has moved on, okay? Employees showed Musk internal data regarding engagement with his account, along with a Google Trends chart. Thank you, Big, for the gift. Last April, they told him Musk was at peak popularity in search rankings, indicated by a score of 100. Today, he's at a score of 9. Again, think Think of the biggest narcissists we know. You know who I mean. And what they do when you tell them, well, last April, before you even took over the country, you were at 100. Today you're at 9 in terms of popularity. Engineers had previously investigated whether Musk's reach had somehow been artificially restricted, mind you, restricted by Twitter's own program. Thank you, Jesse. Musk was convinced that Twitter's own machinery was somehow prejudiced against him, right? Like the machine's alive somehow. But found no evidence that the algorithm was biased against him. This is the kicker. Musk did not take the news well. You're fired. You're fired. Musk told the engineer, and the engineer is now gone. He fired one of the last 2 principal engineers he's got. There's only 2 big ones left. He fired one of them because the guy couldn't tell Musk why his tweets weren't doing well enough. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. I mean, and I had to put this one into the end because since it's an Elon Musk kind of day, actually I should have mentioned, I forgot to mention Musk in my, I should have put it in my Twitter pitch for the, my TikTok pitch for the show because it always gets better traction. Oh, and finally, Patreon, just to remind folks, I do have a Patreon account set up, patreon.com/Aravosis. You can find it via the link in my profile on TikTok. You can also find it at aravosis.com for you guys, or just go directly patreon.com/Aravosis, my last name. And it's a way for you to be able to donate and support my work with, $5 a month, something like that. But it helps a lot because it allows me to actually have steady income coming in because I am doing this for free and I am doing it full time. So if you like what I'm doing, as the Argentine politician told me once, thank you, Bonnie. I told you this guy's story. I've got a background in politics, of course, right? I've worked in public policy work in Washington for over 30 years now. And I was in graduate school at Georgetown, getting a law degree and a master's in foreign service there. And I had I had the best summer job experience of my life. I split my summer between working in Paris for a French multinational company and Argentina for the US Embassy. I mean, again, I will never have been more spoiled in my life. Thank you, Big or BJG, for the crane. I have since never, that was my peak at 23. Best jobs ever. It's been downhill from there. Well, I'm there and I had to interview an Argentine politician, Maria Julia Alzogaray, who was running for president. Very pretty woman. I mean, which is relevant to what I'm telling you. Thank you, Frank. Very smart, but very pretty, dark hair, beautiful one. And Maria Julia, very smart. And she's telling me, she goes, I was running for president, and I forgot why she brought this up, but I love the story. It stuck with me. Thank you, Sage. It made me think of asking you guys for help for, basically supporting me. And she says, I was walking down the street, and these workers at a construction site, they looked up at me, and they said, Maria Julia, pero qué culo. And basically meaning they looked down at her, and they said, Maria Julia, what a nice ass you have. And she goes, and I turned to them, and I said, ¿Te gusta? Votalo. Basically, you like it? Vote for it. And I just love the image of this woman going, hey, Maria Julia, nice ass. She goes, you like it? Vote for it. It just, because it was just, she was just beautiful, very smart, very right wing. I think she may have gone to jail for corruption and then died or something, but a very strong, I was impressed because very strong woman. But I love also turning it around on its head. And at the same time, those guys probably loved it. Absolutely. She got the votes. She got the votes. So that's all I'm saying. You like it? Vote for it in terms of supporting me here, folks. I appreciate it. All right. My Spanish is good. It was fluent at a point. I just don't use it anymore, really, other than when I walk my dog, I get to use my Spanish with the kids in the neighborhood. All right, guys, let's do the Q&A here. TikTok, you can submit them via the Q&A link in my profile. The rest of you can obviously use the super chat on the bottom here. Let me go to TikTok questions. Maria Julia Alzogaray. It's Alsogaray. Alzogaray. Oh, thank you, Anya. I just see Anya pledged $5. Thank you, Anya. That was sweet of you. I was pulling up TikTok and it gave me the little notice. Thank you for that. That was sweet of you. Thank you, Inspired Woman. That's another. Oh, it's cute. That's another one I haven't seen before. Thank you. That was cute. Whoop. I've got Martha Stewart coming up making crepes. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Daniel's saying Roger Waters is really just against war. He would like it to stop right now, no matter the consequences. Well, and that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem with, I think, I get people that don't like war. I mean, I don't like war, but you don't like, I mean, basically someone's getting mugged and they're losing. Thank you, Jean-Marc. You don't sort of say, well, let's stop helping. I don't like violence when the guy's already getting mugged. Ukraine's already getting mugged. All we do by not helping, we support Russia by not helping. If we had the ability to stop it, get the Russians out entirely, I'm with you. Let's just snap our fingers and the Russians are gone and Ukraine gets its territory back, works for me. But by saying, let's just stop the war when Russia is occupying 20% of Ukraine, you're literally handing Ukraine to the Russians. And we've seen the atrocities the Russians are doing. So, why can't Poland or whoever just give the airplanes? Why do they look to U.S. for approval? Okay, couple things. Depends on the planes. Generally speaking, hey, Andy. Sorry, I'm going to say that one first. Andy is in Ukraine and saying, I'm from Ukraine. Why do you care about Ukraine? First of all, I will tell you guys why I care about Ukraine. I'm curious about all of you, because a lot of you watching care as well. I mean, I know you've only got a quick little thing you can write down. Write down why does this matter to you? I am kind of curious. I mean, you guys, a lot of you have been coming every day, or people stopping in. I mean, we've got 1,000 people on TikTok right now. Obviously, you 1,000 care. Most of you aren't Russian trolls. Why do you care? For me, it's funny. It's hard to say. I've always been interested in foreign policy. I speak 5 languages. I've traveled all over the world. As I was telling you, I was living in Argentina for a summer. I've always cared about things around the world. I've also been an activist for all my life on gay rights and civil rights issues and things like that. And I've always been kind of an activist anyway. Things get me mad and I've got to do something about it. And it's just the way I'm wired. It probably makes me less of a happy human being because I'm always getting mad, but I don't just get mad. I feel this compulsion to do something to help, because if I'm not helping, I feel like I can help. And that if I'm not helping, it frustrates me. So for me, at least, actually, the other point I'll throw in, I'm old enough where I was able to witness the existence of the Soviet Union, right? I was born in the 1960s. I had many decades of watching the Soviets. I went to the Soviet Union in 1984. It was a horrifying place. It was a brutal dictatorship, and it was just as brutal and dictatorial when I was there. Horrific place. Russia ran the place. I mean, Russia is the modern day inheritor of the Soviet Union, and unfortunately, those same values are there, and we're seeing it come back, like gangbusters. All of that together means when the Russians did this, once again, it brought back all of my, not just my old feelings about the Russians, but my knowledge of the Russians. So it wasn't just a feeling thing. It was going, oh my God, we're back to where we were 30 years ago. They're doing it again. They're basically invading Europe, and I'm trying to use words that won't get me into trouble on Twitter, violating Europe again, like they've done before, killing, pillaging, destroying countries. And then you got my civil rights side where I just get angry and I don't like to see bullies. And I've always felt like and I've been pretty successful making a difference, going after bullies, like I said, on civil rights and other issues here in America and around the world. And it just, so I felt like I could do it, but it just, and now, of course, I know Ukrainians and, my friend Vlad. So now I feel like I have a personal interest, and Zelensky, I don't know. I'd love to know. Volodymyr, call me, so there you go. Elise, longtime federal project officer here. If Elon's defense contract didn't specify a use exclusion for drones, this is a violation. Oh, that's interesting, especially since he provided the service before and made a midterm non-negotiable change. Now, that's an interesting point. That is interesting. Now, I guess it depends who he contracted with, right? But we know the U.S. is paying for some of these. We know actually, here's part of the problem you've got too. You also, you basically, for Starlink, you've got to buy the box, okay? And the box could be $350, $400, whatever, euros. And then you pay the monthly fee. And he totally jacked up the fee in December. Like the box prices soared and the price for the monthly fee went up like 50%. It was ridiculous. So they're trying to milk the Ukrainians and the governments anyway. But that's interesting. No, I'm with you. Legally, he's out of his mind. First of all, if it goes to court, though, he'll lose, but it takes a while to go to court is the problem, and they need these things now. Honestly, the federal government needs to think long and hard about what they're doing with Elon Musk and SpaceX. I realize we don't have an alternative in terms of getting people, into orbit and everything else, going to Mars and everything. But I mean, actually, somebody had a brilliant tweet today in response to the Elon Musk stuff. And they said, could you imagine going to live on Mars when Elon Musk controls the oxygen? I mean, this guy, capricious, is a nice word for him. It's a nice word. I don't think he's capricious at all. I think he's a little woo-woo. He's a little damaged. And he is very gullible at the same time. And therefore, he changes his mind because he's just effed up, and he just literally boom, boom, boom. I don't think there's a lot of Trump in him. And I don't say this in a I hate Donald Trump kind of way. It's Donald Trump in a Trump makes decisions based on his emotions. He also changes his mind left and right. Any commitment he makes, he doesn't really care. He's happy to change the commitment at the last minute. And Elon's the same way. You can't trust what this guy says because he just boom, boom, boom. And he's gullible like Trump is in the sense of propaganda convinces him, conspiracies and propaganda convince him of things, even though they're not true. And Musk clearly, you should see what Musk has been doing. Just in the last week, he's been engaging with Russian troll accounts on Twitter that are just spreading. They claim he replied to somebody saying like 2,700 NATO troops have been killed by the Russians in Ukraine. And he responded to the tweet and said, that's just awful. And the rest of us were going, are you insane? No, he's got a screw loose. He really does. But also, as we said, I think Putin got to him. And that's the other problem. So, second richest man in the world who controls a monopoly on this internet service seems to be controlled by Putin. And that's really scary. Ooh la la. All right. Sorry, I'm looking at some of the questions on here. Sorry. Yes. As a Canadian, I watched the USA procedure. I don't remember the right way to say it, but the television Senate, I think, sorry. Oh, don't read this out loud. Of course, I just started reading it out loud. That's funny. So I'm looking here. All right. Vlad's PayPal. Yes. Vlad's PayPal, I will put up here. You can also find it for the donations for the nets by simply going to my erevosis.com link or the link in the TikTok. They were asking how you can help us with the fundraiser we're doing to buy, or to make actually, let me be more precise, to buy the materials to make camouflage nets for the Ukrainian military for the upcoming offensive. So please help with that if you can. We got more time here. Let me pull up another TikTok question. The latest in Russia's plan for a new offensive. I mean, who knows? Thank you, Inspired, for the bear. Just to sort of summarize, the Ukrainians are very worried that the Russians are going to launch a new offensive in like 9 days. Okay. They're very worried. They think there's going to be a new Russian attack, a big one in 9 days. NATO, I think, has been worried that the Russians were planning something big, at least for maybe end of March, early April, mid-April. But the Ukrainians seem to be more worried that something's coming sooner. Institute for the Study of War, big think tank we like, defense think tank, had reported. I didn't really get into this because it was small. You'll see when I start telling you, it's kind of a both sides. So I wasn't really sure it's very helpful. Saying that the Russians look like they've now got sort of, what's the word? It wasn't momentum. It was a word similar to momentum with the fighting in the East, that they've got kind of the, they've got the, it's going for them right now in the East. They've got the enthusiasm and all of that. But at the same time, they're building up, like they're building up. They're putting more troops in. They're fighting with the initiative. That was the word they used. No, the initiative, I think, was the word. Yep. Thank you. I'm not going to even say your name. I was going to say Faith. It's not Faith, is it? That was cute. I almost said somebody's name that would have been like a real slur saying it publicly. But the Russians are gearing up. They're putting more troops. They're fighting more. They're getting the initiative. But it's not clear they're going to beat the Ukrainians with this initiative because again, the Russian troops aren't as well trained and blah, 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 blah. So I didn't sort of mention it because it sounded like the Russians are doing better, but the conclusion was they won't necessarily be able to achieve anything. So who the hell knows? I think this is one of the reasons I'm troubled about Elon Musk and the whole issue with cutting off Starlink today to drones in Ukraine, because it seems awfully coincidental that that's happening at the same time that Ukraine is saying in 9 days the Russians are planning some big secret attack. That worries me a little. So I don't know. We don't know. We don't know anything. I mean, we're not going to really know until it happens, as far as if the Russians are planning some new big thing, that would be Russia, you mean? So I assume you wrote that in. Yeah, the mods. Yeah, some Russian troll just wrote Ukraine lost a lot of. Now, actually, I will say this. Thank you, mods, for getting that person on TikTok. Somebody on TikTok just wrote Ukraine lost a lot of support after using chemical weapons in the UK. Russia used chemical weapons in the UK. They attacked. They literally used chemical weapons on British soil. But this is the way the trolls do it. They throw stuff out there and people reading it go, wow, really? I didn't know that. Oh my God. The Ukrainians used chemical weapons? Yeah, in Salisbury, exactly. It was Russian agents. And I mean, frankly, that's another thing. We should have come down on them like a ton of bricks when that happened and not just kick people out of their embassies. That's an act of war doing that. Anya, thank you. I'm going to guess you're the same Anya. Thank you, Anya. Do you think the Starlink defense contracting debacle will be a good cause for the new Space Force to grow and take that role? I mean, yeah, if they can, Anya's talking about this sort of new arm of the military, the Navy, Air Force, Marines, Army. Well, of course, I could say to Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force. I didn't love the Space Force idea. I think it sounded kind of stupid. Having said that, in the long term, it's probably not a terrible idea. But we don't have a regular launcher, right? I mean, once the space shuttle blew up like the second time, we kind of, we shelved that. We don't really have a way of getting right. We don't have a way of getting back to the moon. We don't, all this kind of stuff. It's retrieving it's space, the space station, all that kind of crap. We either have to rely on the Russians or Elon Musk. And the problem is Elon Musk is clearly not trustworthy in terms of his capriciousness. There's a screw loose there. He doesn't seem emotionally stable. He seems very gullible, as I've said, and he's acting like he's been co-opted by Putin. Or at the very least, as David Frum said today, he represents a company that takes positions based on the political beliefs or the political whims of its owner. So that Starlink and SpaceX, if you try to work with SpaceX or any Musk company, we've seen it with Twitter too. Musk has made clear that any company he runs now, because the new Musk, the crazy Musk, is going to use those companies to advance his conspiratorial political beliefs, his extremist conspiratorial political beliefs. He's doing it with SpaceX, and we've been watching him do it with Twitter. And thus does not a defense contractor make. The idea, I had a SCI security clearance, top secret SCI, code word. You don't get security clearances acting like Elon Musk is acting. You really don't, but we did. No, we've got to build up some capacity to take over or just nationalize the damn thing, though I doubt we would be able to do that. Interesting from Dan. When the war was about to start, we'd get lots of news reports about massing troops, exactly like last February. I haven't heard any specific news about this recent offensive. That's a good point. We're not getting the same kind of reports about, another 10,000 Russian troops moving to the border, this kind of thing. At the same time, I think maybe because it's been happening gradually for months, the latest estimate is that Putin has twice the number of troops in Ukraine than he did months ago, right? Oops, hold on, just blocking a troll. I like to occasionally block trolls myself. It makes me feel good. That he's up to 300,000 troops. So clearly the Russians went from 150,000 to 300,000 troops in the last many months. They did that so maybe that's been it. It's just there's been a gradual, not even a trickle, but a gradual, stream of troops coming in. So there almost hasn't been anything to report because each day or each week isn't a significant number. But when you add 4 months together, it's a lot. So yeah, I don't know, but it's a good question though. It's a good question. There's something wrong with him. Yeah, Jingle is weighing in. Musk at first seemed like a great guy, but as time goes by, he's showing his actual lack of real life intelligence. One of the theories I have of life is to, and I used it for sort of my political activism and politics, but I think it's sort of being a genius in general, to be very smart. To be very smart, you have to be, I think to be a genius, you've got to be 49% crazy. But you've got to be 49% crazy. I don't think he's 49% crazy. I think Elon Musk is 51% crazy. And that's the problem. It's, hang on. How did, sorry, I'm just checking here. Boop. And 51% crazy doesn't work, because when you're 51% crazy, you can't control it anymore. 49%, it's literally like, being on medicine for depression or anxiety or whatever, it's just controlled enough that you got it under control. 51%, and I think he's 51 or 53. No, but I do. I think there's just something wrong with Donald Trump is kind of a genius for marketing, but Trump is also nuts. But Musk has a problem, and he likes to, his defenders like to say Asperger's and everything else. He's just he's dumb as far as all the conspiracy stuff. He's just dumb. Again, and even with the honestly, I'm kind of wondering about the business stuff too, because everyone would always, I don't want to get into him. Everyone always said with the businesses, he basically bought the businesses. I don't know. But I can tell you this, the guy who's running Twitter is not some business genius. That's for sure. God, Otanbot is asking, what are the goals and strategies of the Russian forces in the offensive in eastern Ukraine? I guess it depends which offensive you mean. The big offensive going on right now is Bakhmut, okay? And that's right here. And at least from the Russian perspective, they think that if they get this, it's going to aid them in terms of taking the rest of Donbass. Because remember, they want all of Ukraine, but they don't yet control 100% of this region in the east that they really want. The region made up of Luhansk and Donetsk, the two provinces. Luhansk, they pretty much got all of it. Donetsk, the province here, they've got about half of it. They don't have the other half. So the Russians seem to think that if they get this, it gives them a much better ability to take the rest of the territory. And that's a big goal of Putin's. And that's the area that supposedly we heard back in December or early January. We heard that Putin had ordered the generals that by March, I want you to take that entire region. So from their perspective, that could be wide. Now, the new offensive, it depends. The new big offensive could be just the because we keep hearing about the possibility of a huge, big new Russian offensive, right? It could be continuing from Bakhmut and just for sure taking all of Donbass, of all of the remainder of Donbass, which they don't have in the east. That's one. Second, there's been talk about Zaporizhia. Now, whether it's getting the rest of Zaporizhia, they don't control this province here. They don't control all of it. My suspicion is the Russians are very worried about the Ukrainians potentially doing a counterstrike and taking the land here. And if the Ukrainians take the land here, it really screws the Russians, because the Russians took Crimea back in 2014. There's a bridge to Russia over here. Russia's over here. It's over here. There's a bridge to Russia over here, the bridge that the Ukrainians or somebody hit a few months ago, remember? But in terms of land, by land, the only way you reach Crimea is through all of this and then go to Russia here. This is the reason Russia invaded. Russia wanted one continuous piece of land connecting all of this, and then this is Russia right here, right? So if this gets taken back by the Ukrainians here, you've now cut this here and this here in half. So all of a sudden, these people can't get supplied by these people can't get supplied by these. It makes the war fighting, it basically sets the Ukrainians up to eventually move south and take Crimea. But who knows? My guess is he probably is going to try to take Donbass. And maybe they want more land. Maybe they're going to solidify the land they've got. Thank you, Tom, for that. They want the entire country. That's the thing too, though. I mean, they have enough land, sure, but he wants the entire thing. What else we got here? Well, I'm a little over, but I don't mind. I'll do a couple minutes over, and then we'll let me do another maybe another TikTok at least. Hang on. TikTok question. TikTok. I don't know about that. No, I don't know anything about this. Somebody's asking a question about Poland closing a border crossing with Belarus in response to imprisoning Polish Belarusian reporter. I don't know about that. No. I talked about the Washington Post stuff earlier, actually. You missed it. Magical photo. Sorry. We talked about it earlier in the show about the Washington. Actually, go check it out in the Washington Post. There's a big story about the Ukrainians. The Americans are basically helping the Ukrainians target their the most sophisticated weapons. Why doesn't the Ukraine? This is a good question to end with. Why doesn't the Ukrainian military? This is from Tony Moonhawk. Why doesn't the Ukrainian military cross the border and hit the Russians? So just to remind you all, okay, Ukraine, Russia is pretty much all of this is Russia. Here you get Belarus, here you get Poland, Romania, Hungary, Moldova, like all sorts of other NATO and other countries here, Slovakia. But Russia itself, Russia itself is all of this. So the question is, why isn't Ukrainian going across the border into Russia? A couple of things are happening. I mean, Ukraine have been firing at Belgorod, which is a Russian city right across the border here from Kharkiv. It's literally maybe 20 miles, 25 miles across the border. So, 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers maybe across the border. And it's a center for Russia resupplying its troops. So there's a lot of ammunition there, a lot of fuel and other stuff. The Ukrainians have been hitting it. We also know the Ukrainians have been using drones to hundreds of miles into Russia, I think just to freak the Russians out, right? I mean, the idea is just to make the Russians go, oh my God, they can hit deep into Russia. And now the Russians are wasting time building up their defenses in the rest of the country when they thought they only had to worry about Ukraine itself, right? But generally speaking, okay, third point is Ukraine is not hitting Russia as much because Belgorod, I didn't say Belgrade, I said Belgorod, but it's Ukraine is not attacking Russia as much, first of all, because America doesn't want them to and Europe doesn't want them to, because we're afraid that Vladimir Putin will get very angry if Ukraine attacks Russia and then he'll use nuclear weapons, right? So that whole argument. And finally, you do what's useful militarily. I mean, Ukraine has got 18% of its country that Russia's occupying right now, okay? All of, more or less, all of this is occupied by Russia. Ukraine will do whatever attacks is necessary, hopefully, that will facilitate this battle. Attacking Belgorod is only useful if you're attacking to hit fuel, ammunition, other supplies that would have gone to the troops fighting here. Then it makes sense. But doing it just to be a jerk, that's like something the Russians would do. Let's just bomb to be rude. You don't want to do it unless it's supporting the battle here. So I think that may be the biggest reason. I think the biggest reason is probably twofold. One, NATO keeps telling them, please don't do this. So they're trying to avoid doing it across the border. They are doing guerrilla attacks, I think. TJS is saying, I think he's right, or she. They're definitely, infiltrating Russia and blowing things up, I think. But, you'd have to find maybe somebody who knows the defense even better than I do that could tell you, okay, how would it help Ukraine get all of that land back that the Russians are occupying by attacking in Russia? And they might be able to tell you, yeah, there's probably a couple supply depots. And I would say this too, occasionally attacking in Russia, as I said, is not a bad idea because it just freaks the Russians out and it forces Russia to then, for example, Russia, they had to put up a bunch of air defense stuff in Moscow a couple weeks ago on top of the defense ministry and stuff because they suddenly got afraid of the Ukrainian drones. I mean, that's great. It's great from a morale perspective because it freaks them out and makes the Ukrainians go yay. But it also makes the Russians waste money and equipment that they could be putting into the war, right? the war in Ukraine by spending it at home. Now they've got other cities they've got to defend that the Russians never thought they had to defend. It just wastes time and effort, and that's what you'd like to do. So there you go. All right, guys, I will do a quick summary of the news we covered today, and then I am going to go. All right. Because I guess I'm going to figure out what the hell is wrong with my IKEA light that I bought today. All right, quick summary of the news here. Elon Musk has cut back on Starlink to suit his own pro-Putin political agenda. Talked about it at length. You can Google a story. Times of London is reporting that Britain is considering sending long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine. The Washington Post reports that the U.S. is helping Ukraine target advanced weapons. The weather in the next few weeks is going to be getting wetter and warmer in Ukraine, which does not bode well for a Russian counteroffensive if it launches in the next few weeks, because wet, gooey mud is very hard for troops to advance in. Thank you for the gift there, Happy Beach. CNN, Iran has modified its drones to make them deadlier. Zelensky says several European countries are ready to provide Ukraine with military fighters. Zelensky arrived at the European Parliament in Brussels today. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's some video out of Zelensky joining the other European heads of state of the EU, European Union, and he's going to join them for a photo, and they see him walk up, and they're all applauding him, and one person isn't clapping, and it's Viktor Orban, the head of Hungary, who basically is pretty well. We always knew he was kind of a Putin stooge himself, but literally sat there not even clapping. Everyone's like this, not clapping. And then he finally starts to go, like, literally by his waist, he starts to go like this a little bit. That was it. Now I'm seeing the poll that you guys put up there. Hang on. See the results. I can't actually see polls as they're coming. I can only see them at the end. Oh, I already showed you the map. You already got the map. You got your map. I just showed you the map. All right. Let me see here. Lithuania will hand over to Ukraine 36 portable anti-aircraft systems that can counter Iranian-made drones. The Wagner mercenary group claims to have stopped recruiting prisoners for war against Ukraine, whereas the Russian Ministry of Defense is now recruiting them for its own services. Roger Waters, a co-founder of Pink Floyd, testified on behalf of Russia before the UN today. And Elon Musk fired one of his remaining 2 top engineers because people aren't liking Elon's tweets enough, and he's very upset. So boo frickin' who, Elon Musk. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. I'm going to go. I think I'm going to skip the Discord tonight, if you don't mind. We'll definitely do Discord tomorrow, because I'm tired. Like I said, we had another IKEA trip and just head splitting trying to get my IKEA stuff to work. But good to see you guys all. Thank you for the gifts as always. If you can, like I said, help our fundraiser. We're raising money to build camouflage nets in Ukraine. We are raising money for the materials. Every $20 contribution buys us 1 net. If you can afford $20, go to my TikTok profile, click the link. The very first thing that comes up tells you the PayPal to send it to. Same for you guys. It's on the screen. Vlad's Naprokovsky's PayPal. It's the email on the screen, or go to aravosis.com. You can find it there. And $20, 100% of the money is going to Ukraine. I'm not touching a dime. They're not taking any of it. It's all going to this effort, to the center that's making the nets. All right. The citizens are making the nets, and we're buying them the supplies to do it. So please, if you can, please, $20, guys, to make a net. We can do this. All right. Thank you, guys. All right. I will see you all tomorrow night. It's Thursday. Yep. Tomorrow's Friday. And then, Saturday morning, as always, Saturday morning, we will do our coffee talk on TikTok, which will be the half-hour hangout we do, sometimes longer, with the paid subscribers on TikTok. So join us 10 a.m. Eastern Time U.S. for that. And el gusto es mío, Carla. Encantado. And I will see you guys tomorrow. All right. You all have a good night. And you